let's get to families now. Yay! So as I said already, families, especially in India, have a huge problem with the word respect. So let's delve deeper into it. See, unlike respect in your friend space, or the lovey-dovey kind, or maybe even in some cases with your siblings, is a lot more different than most people have with their parents. Parents are the first and most wise people you know as a child, or so most parents like to think. The sheer gap in the amount of knowledge you have and the amount of shit that they have been through in their lives is just enormous. But a lot of times, this doesn't just automatically make the parent smarter or wiser. Sometimes kids can say things that are a lot more smarter and more mature than even they themselves perceive. But it's really hard for someone who's 30 to 40 years older to think that the person who's younger would be able to hold even a sliver of the knowledge bank that they have. It's like the time where a 45-year-old father who has struggled numerous times to make ends meet and have faced countless struggles to get where he is. Then when their spoiled son doesn't get an iPhone 11 Pro Max, because they're like 7, they say stuff like, आप दोनों बेकार हो, मेरे लिए कुछ नहीं करते. At which point you'll be like, now listen here, you little shit. Those are the times you'd be thinking that if this is how they are now, then they'd never amount to anything and they'll be dumb forever. But that's where most go wrong. See, obviously there are some child prodigies and some really fucking stupid old people. But that's not what I'm talking about here. People worldwide need to realize that older doesn't always equal wiser. And same way, young doesn't always equal naive. Most kids these days are a lot wiser and knowledgeable than people give them credit for. Unless they watch Chota Bheem, in which case it's a lost cause and I'm so sorry for your loss of an intelligible offspring. I'm partially joking, of course. You'd obviously disown your kid if he changed the channel to Pogo, where Chota Bheem is lifting a truck after eating laddus. Jokes aside, rather than just scaring kids into submission by saying things like,
तेरी हिम्मत कैसे हुई अपनी माँ से इस तरह बात करने की?
And then expecting them to open up later in life about why they started drinking, why they started doing drugs, and why they're in depression and are super suicidal, is frankly way more childish than any child I have ever known personally. So bottom line, if your parents can't be bothered to change their behaviors, then rather than drowning yourself in alcohol and drugs, it's just miles better to seek out people to talk about your problems to. As I said, it's really common in a place like India for parents to be very egotistical. And in case you're being physically assaulted by your parents, then just throw them out and get new ones like this. Just kidding. Find reputable sources online to let them know and have someone rescue you out of the hellhole you're in right now. Links in the description for the ones I know. As discussed before, if the respect part is taken care of, then half the battle is won already. Next is nuclear family and how sometimes things can get a bit lonely, especially as a child. See, obviously there are plus points to both having an extended family as well as having a nuclear one. One of the major advantages is that there are less variables to worry about. If there are a lot of people in a household, then someday, somewhere, something is bound to go wrong, causing a huge mess in family relations. And it's simply very hard to keep everyone happy from every single side of the family. And after doing so, some people can go insane enough to just miss the asylum. Like my sister. Unless you have like way too good of an understanding. Highly unlikely anywhere, but congrats in case you do. If someone in the household has a problem with a person, no matter how much they try to hide it, it's bound to show up someday, which again can cause a lot of screw-ups in the relations, which is why it's generally safer in a nuclear family, at least in terms of relations being broken. The problems though come in just as quickly. If you don't have any relatives or anyone like that, then in a medical emergency it's really hard to keep things calm and focus on actually taking care of the problem rather than panicking like a chihuahua. In nuclear families, there's also the fact that you have nobody to fight with. But sometimes that can be more of a con than a pro. People who grew up with siblings can definitely understand that no matter how much they fight, if it suddenly stops, then you just kind of feel empty inside. People without siblings are probably the ones who suffer the most in this particular context. Sure, they get the most attention, and sure, they don't have to share anything with anyone. But sometimes it feels better to be forced to share rather than not having anyone to share something with. It all basically comes down to honesty and actually letting your emotions flow through by talking about it. And by the way, anyone who says you shouldn't show emotions or you're considered weak, or things like good kids don't cry, are the same people who have suffered some of the most claustrophobic and restrictive childhoods ever, and they need therapy way before their kids. Now for the relation that sucks the least amount of blood from your brain. Yes, I of course mean your strip. So yeah, friendships usually don't really have too many headaches because it's your bro or your gal, and you could share whatever fucked up thing you're currently having wet dreams about. And yeah, I know. I know your dreams. You sick fuck. So in broship, it's a fact that you have to be as frank and as honest as possible. That means telling your bro that yes, that shirt looks hideous. And if I was the girl, I too would spill the drink on your face. Too much self-projecting? Anyways, this also makes it so if there's a thing you're genuinely hurt about that your friend did, you tell them head on that this is the issue. Don't be like me and take it out in the video.
अच्छा तेरे को पता है आज मेरे साथ क्या हुआ? आज तो
As I mentioned before in the last video, talking is one of the best things you could do for your mental health as well as your physical health, as everything is very deeply connected. Talking to family is always one of the toughest things to do, due to how they might judge you and what they might say, and with your significant other, it's sometimes embarrassing to talk about everything. But friends, oh boy, friends are the ones on whom you could easily vomit out your feelings so they could either give you advice or at least let you lighten up since you got it out of your heart. And though it's hard to not have any friends, in case the sad truth is that there's no one you consider to be close enough, then try me. My contact info is on screen right now, and I'm almost always available till 8 p.m. since the best thing I have to do is YouTube. This is something that my father, to this day, after over 60 years, still has a hard time justifying. But that's his opinion. But personally, I do feel that things like this are not always just limited to media, as if you find the right people, you genuinely view them as part of your family. And as my dad says, if they're close enough, I don't think anyone would have a problem in living with them either. But again, the amount of closeness needed for that is quite high. So take your time and find like-minded people whom you can count as your own.